Time. This is the second annual, or maybe first inaugural story time with a guest. This is Amber. I'm your host, Britta Newley, and the guest today is Amber Williams. Amber, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi. Well, my name's Amber, and I am a nurse. I was most recently working as a nurse educator at a cancer hospital and left that job in May because I started my own business. Decided
Oh,
that I wanted to become a content writer and photographer and do creative types of things. And so I write content for those in the healthcare industry. I am a proofreader, editor. I've done a lot of different things this summer, helping people with their LinkedIn profiles, doing a little bit of ghostwriting for some people, and then I just had a book cover published. So Susanna Dawn wrote a
fantastic.
book, and so yeah, we got that published. I'm working on her second book cover right now,
Very
and
cool.
so that's kind of exciting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well, thanks
that's
for
where I am
joining
right now.
me. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to everyone out there who is joining us as well. I met Amber via LinkedIn. So this is an example of the power of LinkedIn. And Amber and I have become great friends. So in this whole B2B story time, hi, Jackie. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. In this whole B2B story time, what we're going to be doing is talking through a children's book and then pulling out examples of little nuggets of knowledge that us professionals can use from children's books. So, Amber, I'd love for you to tell us about the children's book you selected, and then we can go forward.
This one is called The Invisible Boy. Let me get it on the camera. There we go. By Trudy Ludwig. And I picked this one because I had never read this story before, but I was really interested in the premise of it because there are times that I feel invisible sometimes. And I was like, I wonder what the invisible boy did.
Mm.
So
Yeah, and I
I,
think that's relatable. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn or starting on LinkedIn that feel invisible. They're like screaming into the void, like trying to get
mhm,
people to read their content. So this is such a great, I love this book, and I'm excited for you to dive right in. It's gonna be great.
yeah, I was excited that my library was able to get it for me. So
Yeah,
I haven't
isn't
been
it
to the
weird? I
library
haven't
in
been to the
forever.
library.
So anyway,
Me either. Years. It's probably been years since I've been to the
yeah,
library.
I had to get a new library card. That's how long it's been.
I mean, yeah, I rediscovered it. I kind of fell in love with it again. It was like, wow, this cool place where I get free books. This is
Yeah.
awesome. All right,
So
let's move
we
on. Sorry.
start, and this little boy named Brian is in his classroom, and it says, "Can you see Brian, the invisible boy?" Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control, and he uses his outside voice inside too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie have a lot of space. Brian doesn't. And I kind of wanted to stop there for right
Yeah,
now, because I
absolutely.
think we we're talking about community and being on LinkedIn, and I think sometimes we can start feeling that invisibleness because there are people out there who take up a lot of space, and
Yeah, yeah,
they're, might be, all over, whether it's in chat rooms or in, on our feed, and it's like we see the same people over and over again, um, and we can kind of feel
yeah,
lost, right?
yeah. Yeah, I resonate with that. I think the way I relate to that is like when I first started trying to put myself out there on my LinkedIn network, it just felt like no one was listening. And actually, I think that's kind of a wonderful thing. I
Mhm.
used to think of it as a negative, but when you're starting out content writing and really trying to get your voice and understand how you want to communicate your message to the world, it's kind of
Yeah.
nice that nobody's watching to start. It's like all of those big epic fails, like, will just kind of disappear. Thank you, algorithm. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
uh,
yes.
how do you relate to to this, like, personally in your journey, this portion of like potentially being invisible, feeling like others are taking
I
up a lot of space?
Yeah, I think it's, needing to figure out, how do I belong?
Mm,
Like, how I'm not I don't know. Some situations I can be very outgoing and,
mhm,
you know, just maybe I take up a lot of space sometimes, you know? But then there are those other times where it's like, no, I'm feeling like there are other people who have control, and I'm just kind of hanging back
mhm,
and
mhm,
listening, letting other people do their thing. Um, yeah, so it's trying to find that balance, I
mhm.
think, too, where, okay, when's the right time for me to come out and say hi and
Right,
be
right. Oh, a little
be with
bit.
these
Yeah,
people, that I want to be with, but I don't feel like they're letting me in. And so
yeah.
sometimes it can be really, really hard.
What's the
Um,
yeah, what is a time when you've been really surprised by, like, there was a situation where maybe you assumed that there wasn't space for you, and then you kinda tested those waters and you were surprised? I'd love to hear, because I know you have a lot of those stories.
well, so one of them, when I first started on LinkedIn, I was a lurker.
Mm,
And I had posted one little post, it went nowhere. I had 3 likes on it. It was just, and those were all people I knew from work. So it's
yeah.
like, "All right, I don't get
It's
this.
like the
What
person
are
in the
people saying?"
cubicle next to you, and, like,
Yes, yeah,
someone you saw at the water cooler.
yeah. "All right, I don't get this." So for 2 weeks, all I did was just, you know, um, read other people's posts, trying to figure out what is it people are writing, connecting with what I thought, connecting with a bunch of nurses, and
Mhm.
then I realized, oh, there's like a whole world of like other people out here.
Yeah,
And so, I found some nurses, I found nurse writers. I'm like, oh, what's this nurse writing thing going on? And then it was, um, medical sales people.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm in the sales group and I'm like, okay, I don't know where I'm at, but this is
A
fun,
whole new world.
and yeah, and so I'm trying to get, connected with people. I learned, you don't just follow people, you need to connect with them as well.
Mhm.
And you have to connect with them in order to send DMs. And so then I was chatting, well, not chatting. I saw somebody's post. It was Greg Van Dyne, actually. And he wrote a post about being uh, a Green Beret medic and how he had been in the Balkans. And I don't remember the rest of it. But those were the two things that stood out to me because my
Yeah.
husband, who passed away a couple years ago, he was a veteran in the Army,
Mhm.
and I had been in the Balkans. And so I was like, well, I'm going to connect with this guy and I'm going to send him a message and, just try to make a friend. And so I
Mhm.
did. And he responded saying that he had been in Albania. I'm like, I was in
Oh,
Albania. And
cool.
then we started sharing about that. And it was just really cool. And then through that, like he started introducing me to other people. He would tag people in my posts or, things. So yeah, he was very instrumental in me meeting new people.
Yeah.
Then 2 months later, I ended up going out to Colorado, which is where Greg lived. And it's a long story, and I'm not going to spend the rest of the
Oh,
time
okay.
telling it. But he did help save my vacation.
Well, that's
Um,
fantastic.
just and so I got to, have dinner with him and his family, and Yeah, it was
Oh,
really, really cool.
great. Well, I love that example of how you were surprised by when you chose to engage when you assumed that you were invisible. I think,
Mhm.
the worst that can happen is people say no, and that hurts, but, it's doesn't compare to the regret of, just hanging back and maybe lurking. But I don't know, we all need our time. There's a time
Yeah,
for everything, right? There's a time to lurk and a
exactly.
time to engage, and figure out when it's your time, right? And there's a time to do weird podcast storytelling. It's so great. Well,
Well,
I would love to hear another excerpt from the book
yeah,
and see how and pull out what you related to that and the
yep,
wisdom you can apply in your career.
absolutely. Well, so on Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's good or cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. You told me how to pronounce this before. It's bulgogi?
Yes,
Is that it?
bulgogi. Yep.
Bulgogi. It's something I need to try this stuff because I do not.
It's good. Oh,
Once I
bulgogi
try
is
it, then
tasty. Yeah,
I'll be
Korean
able
food.
to. Okay, bulgogi. I need to go find a Korean restaurant. That's the moral of this story here. No. Um, Bul what? He says. Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some? Another child says, "There's no way I'd eat booger ghee." And all the kids, all of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. Mm.
Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, I
So,
love your voice and when you're reading. Just think it's beautiful.
thank you.
Maybe you have a career in voiceovers, but that's another podcast, right?
Oh, yeah,
um, so, so how did you relate to? I mean, really beautifully read. How did you relate to that section of the book?
well, you know what? I'm going to read one more page of this
Sure, please
real
do.
quick.
Yeah.
So the next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good, Brian. And then there's a picture that Brian drew. I can't do the camera thing.
Oh,
He said, "Yum."
sweet. Yeah.
So this is really where I think
Okay.
we can pull this out because there are times when there are new people, right, coming into LinkedIn. We've both been on LinkedIn for quite a while now.
That's true. Yeah.
And so now it's our time to try to pull people out of their shells, right? Um,
Mhm.
Several months ago, I had written a post and there was a comment on there from somebody who was a third connection, which is really rare to see that, and for me anyway.
Yeah.
Um, her name was Laura, and I was like, okay, this is, but she wrote like this beautiful comment. It was very thoughtful, had
Oh,
meaning to it. Like, I mean, she was really trying to engage with me.
yeah.
It was not a great post, let's put it that way. Um, and so I was like, all right. So I went to her profile and I saw she had like 8 connections and no, 8 followers and 6 connections.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
oh boy, is this a
Yeah.
real person? Like, oh man, what?
Right. Is this a spam bot? I wonder who this.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Funny.
But she had a banner and it said that she was a nurse writer. And I've never seen a bot as a nurse writer yet.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's too
like,
niche.
okay. Yeah. And she had even posted a couple of her own posts already. Very few comments on those. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try to reach out to her. And so I did. I commented on one of her posts because it was her looking for other writers. And so
Mm.
I tagged in like I don't know, 4 or 5 of my friends who either were nurse writers or just other content writers. And so they all, started connecting with her. Then I sent her a message and offered to help her, just a little LinkedIn 101, you know,
Yeah.
coffee chat with her the next day. We talked for an hour and a half. I mean, it was just so fun
Fantastic.
to meet with
Yeah.
her. Um, and then a few days later, I wrote a post and introducing her to my community. Um, and so it's like, yeah, it was kind of fun. Not
That
kind
is
of.
a
It was
really
really
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it was. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. Yeah, would you mind just like putting your hand in front of the camera and removing it just because you're a little bit blurry?
Oh, did I get
Yeah, it just like got out of autofocus for some reason.
weird? Okay, no, I don't want to leave the site.
No, we don't want you to leave. Don't leave
No.
us, Amber.
Okay,
Don't.
there's that. I
Well,
don't know how
there,
to fix it. I'm so sorry.
that's okay. Try maybe one more time.
Hello.
I think it's good. Well, we're good.
No,
We're rolling
not.
with it.
I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay. B2B story time gets crazy. Gets a little crazy up in here. So,
Maybe because I was holding the book up, it got messed up.
uh, maybe that makes sense.
Okay.
That makes so much
All right.
sense. So, what a brilliant story. There's a couple of things I love about it, but first I'd like to get your reflection on, you know, what did that mean to you to be able to do that for somebody else, and how does that relate to the story?
Mm. I I just it felt really good. Like I said, I mean, she was a really nice person, and she still is a really nice person. Um, just a good person to be connected with now.
Yeah.
She's introduced me to other people, other nurses, um, and that's been kind of cool too. Like we just both of our
Yeah.
communities grew through this, um, and yeah, it also gave me just it was a reminder that there really are new people on here who are real people who have never been on LinkedIn before. Like
Yeah.
she had just started that week,
Oh my.
very literally. Never had
Yeah.
a LinkedIn profile before. You know, because I think when I started last year in July, I'd had an account since 2009, but I had like what was it, 34 followers or something?
Oh my.
And they were the same people who were my connections. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, so I know what it's like to be new and um, not established in the community. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
it was good, and it was really fun to
Yeah.
be able to introduce her to other people too. I think that was,
Absolutely.
and and that was something else that we kind of got to see in this book as well, um, because a little bit later, Justin, the new guy, he sees Brian drawing and just drawing in the dirt. He's like, "Oh, that's really cool." Well, another kid tries taking Justin away from him. He's like,
Oh.
"No, I want to. I'm gonna stay right here and talk to him. I like his drawings."
Mhm.
Well, then later on in the day in the class, Mrs. Carlotti, I'll just read it. Mrs.
Oh.
Carlotti asked the kids to team up in twos or threes for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads towards Justin. I'm already with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing that he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up.
Oh, Brian.
Mrs. Carlotti said we could have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio. Let's have him work with us. Okay, I guess. And so then Brian gets to join them, and it's really cool throughout this book. If you really have to look at the drawings in here because at the beginning, Brian is everyone else is color, but Brian is in
Mm.
black and white or
Oh,
penciled.
wow. Okay.
And as the pages go, as he starts meeting Justin, and he starts feeling less invisible, he starts getting added to him. And so by the end, like he's full color, just like all the other kids. He's not invisible anymore.
Wow. That's a neat
Um,
concept. I love that visual example of,
mhm.
coming into your own, you know.
Yeah,
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 very cool.
it
Very
was neat.
cool. So, how do you relate to that portion of the story professionally?
Mm. I think this is really where it comes down to our collaborations,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Where we start seeing each other not just as, oh, Britta the coach or,
Yeah.
uh, you know, uh, Jackie the social worker or Nadine the writer, but we start really seeing them for what they can bring to our communities. Um, the humor,
Mhm.
maybe, the tech experiences that they have, the people who are really good with videos and making gifts, whatever you call it. Um, like, why did I even
Yeah.
try to say that word? Um, but we start we start seeing all the different creative sides of people, and then we can start working together with them and
Mm.
really bringing that to the community.
Yeah. I mean, this is an example of a creative collaboration. So, heck
Mhm.
yes, more of this, right?
Yeah.
I really relate to that in that I think when you kind of choose to take on a creative collaboration, it really takes on sort of a feeling of its own. Like what you two can produce together takes on its own personality. And it's really interesting to see what that does professionally, to see
Mhm.
who that attracts, and to see what kind of circles you can get into that you hadn't before because of whatever the creative synergy was that you had with the individual. Yeah, recently, I have an example of this. I was partnering with somebody in helping them conceive of a podcast, just doing some consulting work because that's a little bit more of what I do. But
Mhm.
um, she connected me with this person who does PR, and then through all of this creative collaboration, I've like opportunities have opened up to me that I never would have dreamed of, and it's just interesting like when you really give yourself over to messing up and being okay with that and having a personality and differentiating yourself a little bit and even leaning into some of your weaknesses or mistakes or leaning into a little bit more of your personality that you're not necessarily sure if is like professional, leaning into that a little bit more. All of that
Mhm.
stuff has brought me better collaborations, more of like a honed network. It's interesting. For me, it's like when I collaborate with others and when I share my content, it feels like um it almost feels like manifestation. It feels like it's attracting to me the things
Mhm.
that I am reflecting out there. And I think that's wonderful because it's brought crazy opportunities. But how have you experienced this creative collaboration and how has it benefited your career?
Oh. I so this is something where I feel like a lot of my collaborations have been very maybe like back end type of
Mm,
things.
mhm.
Um, but I think now that I see that Nathan is here,
Oh, hi,
I
Nathan.
Nathan and I were part of a collaboration called the Fireside Storytellers.
Fun.
And this is something that we did. It was an improv storytelling back in February. Um, Many people know Trevor Van Horden,
Yeah.
and he was just getting ready to restart. Well, he's getting ready to start season 2 of the Hotness Unleasher show,
Mhm.
and so we did. It was Sam Sierra's brainchild of putting together this group of storytellers, where we got online. We did this live event, totally improv. Like, we had an idea, we knew where we were going, but we
Yeah.
didn't know how we were gonna get there exactly.
It's the best way to
Um,
make a journey. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, it was so fun, and I think there were 6 of us, and then Trevor came in at the end, um, and we got to, like, we were looking for Trevor. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Um, wanted to, bring him back so that he could introduce the next season of Hotness Unleashers, for the next week,
Fun.
I think it was. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was a fun collaboration, and that's a group that, I mean, we have stuck together all year long now. Um,
There you
and
go.
we even added somebody to the group just
There
recently.
you
So,
go. That's
yeah.
amazing. Fireside storytellers. That relates so
Mhm.
well to this B2B storytime theme. I like it. I like it
Yeah.
so much. Well, I'd love so we kind of are arriving at the end of our show,
Mhm.
and I just love for us to scoop up some of these tidbits of wisdom from the book if you wanted to read another passage, and then we can
Sure.
close it out. And hi Sam, hi Nathan, hi Mike.
So let's see here. Well, after Brian gets to join Justin and Emilio in this class project, um, it was lunchtime again.
Ooh,
Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian! He hears someone shout. Hey, Brian, over here. Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Do you want a cookie? Thanks, he says. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all.
ooh, what a great end to a great book.
Hmm.
I love that. So what sort of nuggets are we wanting to scoop up from that passage in particular and also just in general from this book?
I think two things stand out. Um, that sense of belonging, making
Mhm,
sure that, we are letting other people feel like they belong here with us.
mhm.
But then also, um, you know, that hmm, where we're just kind of starting out for those new people, when we were new people, and trying to, figure out where are we? And
Yeah.
then turning into these content creators, these people now who have our own communities. You have your community, I have mine, but we're starting to merge, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I see, with Brian. He got to become friends with Justin, the new boy,
Mhm.
who is now introducing him to a classmate that he's been with, his entire school year, right? But
Yeah.
um, but they're starting um, to merge and to get
Yeah.
together, and I think he's going to be accepted now by the rest
Yeah.
of the class. So.
There you go. I love that. Such a great way to tie it in. And Mike said, belonging is everything, and that collective identity
Mhm.
gives us a sense of a shared tribe. And I so resonate with that. And the other thing I really liked about the end of that story is that Brian also really created his own belonging too. Like
Yeah.
just showing up and engaging with Justin. It's
Right.
not just that he finds it, he creates it because he chooses to engage. And I just think that's another lesson for me, or has been another lesson on LinkedIn, is like just engaging to start. People think that they need to, make a content calendar and like have the, evolved personal brand and like be able to,
Right.
whatever, but it really just starts with engaging. Like for
Mhm.
me, it started with commenting on other people's posts, building
Yep.
that network. And then if I had something that I like had an opinion about, I was like, oh, maybe I can express that in my own post. And then it all kind of snowballed from there. But I think it starts with engagement. And so, like, in the spaces where we feel like we don't belong, how can we engage in a way that we are owning and creating our own belonging? How do you relate to that?
Yeah, I like that. I think I also see it as finding those other people,
Yeah.
though, who are where we were. And because I think that's what Brian was starting to do in this. You know,
Yeah.
when he saw Justin, this new kid, he's like, oh, like maybe this is somebody who can be a friend.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because it was then that he finally started getting color in his cheeks in the book.
Oh, in the book.
Um,
Right. I love
yeah,
it.
when he saw this new kid, like, oh, this might be a new friend. And so I think when we do see these new people on LinkedIn, like, this could be a new person. This could be someone new in our community, and let's reach out to them and
Yeah.
um,
Very
and
cool.
help them feel that sense of belonging as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it just, to me, it also drives home the value of community.
Yeah.
We've been a part of a community called The Gym, which is a
Mhm.
community for content creators, done by Mike Smith himself, but it's been such a valuable community. And what I've appreciated is we've slowly kind of added to it, kind of taken people into the fold
Mhm.
and engaged with people who maybe otherwise didn't, so it starts to grow on itself. And it's really, I think it's just important that we recognize that there's always, there's never any finality to belonging or creating a personal brand or even creation.
Mhm.
There's never any, like, you know,
Oh,
there's
we're
yeah,
constantly changing those things.
always
I mean,
evolving.
when when I started on LinkedIn, I was I wasn't perfectly happy, but I had a good job. I
Yeah,
was not planning to leave my job at that
right.
point.
Yeah.
Um, I really came, I guess, looking for a community, looking for
Yeah.
people.
Mhm.
My husband had died 9 months prior,
Mm,
and my brother
sorry.
lived with me up until 8 months, um, after, Carl died, and so I'd been home alone for a month, and I was watching Hallmark movies, 4
Mm.
hours every night after I got home from work, more on the weekends. Like, that's all
Gotta
that
love that
I
Hallmark movie.
did.
Big city
And
lawyer goes to the small town, falls in love. That's
oh, I
essentially
know,
every Hallmark movie.
but some of them were better than others, let's just put it that
Hey,
way.
I love a
And
good Hallmark movie. Yeah.
oh, and I could talk about these movies at work with my other friends who were watching them. Like, I mean, we
Yeah.
knew all the
Yeah.
actors and actresses' names. It was great.
Love it. Love it.
But coming on to LinkedIn gave me these new people, this new
Mhm.
community. Instead of watching Hallmark movies 4 hours every night, I was on LinkedIn 4 hours every night, just meeting new people.
Yeah.
And you guys are real.
Yeah. I'm a real boy.
These people on Hallmark are not.
Yeah.
Um, and well, okay, they're not people that I could communicate with, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this was what I needed, and this is it's a beautiful thing. It's been so healing too.
Agreed. Agreed. It has been beautiful and healing to be a part of your journey in what since I have known you, and also been beautiful for me to grow and to be able to do crazy stuff like this. Oh my
You do
gosh.
it
Well,
well.
yeah, I've had so much fun with you tonight, Amber, and I
Oh, thank you.
appreciate your book pick. If you want to just show it again, give it a little
I'm gonna say
plug.
blurry probably
Yep,
again, but
it might be, but yeah, The
the
Invisible
invisible
Boy by
lights.
Trudy Ludwig. Wonderful
And
book.
a wonderful illustrator, Patrice
Yeah,
Barton.
Patrice
Yes.
Barton. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I like
Well,
her.
thank you everyone who joined us. And I don't know when we're going to be doing these again. This is kind of just an experiment, so we'll see.
Well, I think
If
Nathan
you,
wants to do the next one, so
oh,
you're gonna have
Nathan
to tag
said
Nathan.
well, Nathan, go ahead and DM me. And we can work it out. If anybody has been watching and wants to be on this part of this weird experiment, DM me. I'm into it. All right. Well, have a good night, everybody.
All
Thanks for
right.
joining me, Amber, and thanks
Bye.
for joining everybody else. Bye.